Hello, fictional. Welcome to the What If Essay. Today we are gonna see what if Issei was the wielder of Leyden. Part 3. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Issei summoned his chains and dodged to the right as the man thrust towards his chest. Issei slashed at the man's legs trying to unbalance him, but the man jumped over it. They were about to lunge at each other when a scream rang out through the room. They both looked over, and Issei was surprised to see Asia standing in the doorway covering her mouth in horror. "Issei," she screamed. "Ah damn blonde, you ruined my fun playtime. Leave now so I can cut this nasty devil up real nice," said the crazy-looking man. Issei just nodded for her to leave, in which she fled from the room and, by the sound of a door shutting a second later, out of the house. At this the two looked at each other, with the man getting a crazy smile on his face again. "Time to make this little devil bleed real nice," he screamed as he rushed at Issei. This time Issei stepped to the side and, tired of this man's antics, slammed his fist into the face as he went by. The man slammed to the ground and groaned. Issei looked down at him with disgust and said, "I think I broke his freaking neck." Before he left the house he walked over to the man's body that was hanging on the wall and cast a little flame spell at the feet of the man. As he left the house, he turned his head and looked at the still groaning psychopath and wondered if he should save him from the inferno, but decided to leave him to his fate. When he got outside he saw Asia sitting against the next door house, crying. He walked over to her and crouched beside her. When she saw him, she looked conflicted. He could guess what was conflicting her, as he was a devil, but also one of the only people that she knew in this town so far. Finally, it seemed that the limited friends won out as she ran at him and wrapped her arms around his stomach while sobbing into his chest. He wrapped his arms around her and held her as she got a hold of herself. He understood what she was going through, as some of the techniques that Erebor had showed him required him to watch scenes of battles from long ago all the way to present. He had seen his fair share of carnage, causing his reluctance in killing others. He had left the priest in the fire because what the man had deserved no less in punishment. After about 10 minutes of calming her down, Asia finally got a hold of herself. She pulled herself from his chest while rubbing her red eyes. After another 3 minutes of awkward silence, Issei decided to speak. "Are you okay?" he asked her, careful not to set her off again. She nodded and then asked, "Why would Father Fried do that? Why did he hurt that man?" He said it was because the man had contacted a devil. "Is that you, are you a devil?" Asia asked a little fearfully, though mostly curious. "Well kinda, I mean I am sort of a devil, but I'm not the one that the man had contacted." "What do you mean that you are sort of a devil? Are you such a bad person that people labeled you as one?" "No, I truly am part devil, but I am also part human, dragon, angel, and maybe more. I am so screwed up, I don't what I'll discover about myself until it makes itself known." Asia didn't say anything, she just stood there and stared at him with large eyes. "Well, seeing that I broke you, how about I at least also make sure that you get home?" Issei asked with a nervous chuckle. She just nodded slowly again while still staring at him. He took her by the hand and started walking her towards the church again. It was about 15 minutes later, he heard Asia gasp. He turned to her with a questioning look and saw that she was looking at his back. "What is it? You're hurt," she said as she pointed to his upper back. Issei finally registered the pain coming from his back after all of the adrenaline had passed. He heard Asia praying and saw a strange glowing from behind him. Gradually the pain started to dissipate and Issei came to the conclusion that Asia was using her sacred gear. All the while that this was happening, Issei was in conversation with the heads of Leyden, John, and Lucifer. "How could you let that gut get a hit in on you?" Erebor yelled, "You're going to have to do 60 hours of melee practice, a day of Senjutsu training with Kuroka and Kaneko, and whatever I can think of during that time. You are going to do all of that before you ever think of sleeping again." "Oh hush you," Sariba chastised Erebor. He was sad by the memories that you forced him to watch. "Would you both shut up? I think that we can all agree that the most important thing right now is that Issei stops Asia before she ruins his chance at being in a naked lady pile again," screamed Gallifrey as if he was on fire. Actually, Gallifrey, I think that the most important fact is that Issei gets healed up and gets home before Kuroka and the others find out that Issei has been hurt and destroy half of the town, looking for the person who did it," said Gareth in a scared voice. Issei finally decided to just leave the heads to their own arguments. He smiled at Asia and thanked her as she finished healing his back and started to walk again with her. After they had been walking for a while, Issei realized that it was only about 10 minutes until they reached the old church. He then felt a familiar presence and rolled him and Asia out of the way as a beam of light flew by them. Issei looked up and saw the fallen angel that attacked him, that Raynor had called Donasik. The bastard had a smug grin on his face as he looked down at them on the ground. The little smelly devil-s on the ground where he belongs, trying to take advantage of some poor nun. "Now I just can't allow that to happen, so I am just gonna kill you again, and this time make sure you stay dead." "And as for you my pretty, you have something that I want and I plan to take," he said, bringing out another light spear. Issei pushed Asia behind a trash can on the side of the road while summoning his sacred gear. Neither of them wasted any time and attacked. Issei attacked, whipping his chain straight for Donasik's head, trying to keep him distracted for the chain that he had designated to Erebor to attack from behind. When he was in position, Erebor lashed out and pierced the fallen angel in the shoulder. Donasik faltered in the air long enough for Issei to pierce him again in the side and in the thigh. Donasik screamed out and disappeared in a flash of feathers, only to reappear holding Asia by the throat in front of him. "You cheating devil, never should have expected you to keep yourself from cheating. Well, no matter, after I get what I want from her, I'll return to finish you off." And just like that he again disappeared, this time taking Asia with him. Issei instantly started heading toward the old church, feeling the destination the transport magic was directed to. "This time the bastard is going to die," thought Issei. "He can screw with me all he wants, but if he thinks he can hurt those that I call my friends, then he's in for a world of pain." Issei was angry, his mind was filled with thoughts on how he was going to make Donasik suffer. The asshole had been a pain for far too long. It was time to end it. The heads of Leyden were all taking sides along with John, who was trying to convince Issei that killing or attacking the man might cause the fallen angels to get angry at him, and Lucifer, who was carrying Issei on, encouraging him to attack the man that would dare attack those that he calls friend. Issei paid them no mind, his rage pushing them all away from his own mind. At this point he was at the entrance of the old church. He decided to be polite and knocked on the door. Knock knock womp. The door fell from the force that he put in his knocking. He walked in and saw no one. Everyone was gone. It appeared, or it would have if he didn't sense the fallen angel under the floorboard. He's starting to walk in, watching his surroundings. When John saw all of the destroyed religious items scattered in the room, he too felt a small want for Issei to attack the man. Issei arrived at the altar in the middle of the room and cast a detect spell that showed a hole right under the altar. He pushed it out of his way and walked down the now revealed staircase. When he got to the bottom, his rage doubled as he spotted Asia chained to a cross with fallen angels surrounding her, with Donasik about to cast the finishing of the spell. Without warning or prompt, Issei summoned his sacred gear. This time he let the ones on his back, not caring about keeping them a surprise weapon anymore, and attacked. The fallen angels had no idea what was happening until 6 of the 14 were unconscious on the floor, covered in blood. When they turned to face him, they saw one of the most frightening sights that they had ever seen. As a man with chains surrounding him, that weaved amongst each other like snakes, stood there with his eyes burning in hate right at them. The worst thing was the man was completely silent, not making one of those half-assed speeches about how he was going to defeat them and set the girl free. He just stood there with burning eyes full of uncontained rage. The man stood there for another second before he lunged and attacked. Issei lunged at the first 2 people with his own chains, while the chains on his back held off the others. Because he had surprised attacked them, they were completely unprepared and fell one after the other. The whole time though, Issei could still hear Donasik chanting and knew that time was against him. He wrapped a chain around the neck of one of them as he stabbed another through the wings of one of them, dragging them down to the ground as one stabbed him in the stomach. This whole time Issei was aiming to incapacitate them, not kill. He only planned on killing Donasik if needed, as these others fools had done nothing wrong other than being completely stupid trying to hurt one of his friends. Finally, those that could still walk fled to the other side of the room and started to chant in sync as a bright ball of light appeared before them. "Careful, Issei. That spell is a pretty high-leveled one. Don't let it hit you or it could leave a mark," said Sareba, watching the fight go on with worry. The spell that they used shot out in the shape of thousands of needles. Issei brought the chains on his back in front of him and weaved them together, effectively creating a shield. Needle after needle slammed into the shield, but still it held strong. Issei could tell why it took more than one of them to cast the spell, as each needle that hit felt like a sledgehammer. Issei started to push forward through the barrage. He finally made it to the angels after about 5 minutes, though before he had to do anything, they started to collapse after using all of their energy. Issei breathed a sigh of relief as the attack stopped. He probably would have dropped in exhaustion if it hadn't been for Erebor's endurance training. Issei looked up to see something that pushed his rage over the edge. He saw Donasik speak the final words of the chant and rip the twilight healing from her body, thus killing her. Issei's eyes went black and his body moved. This was the last sight that Donasik saw. Issei was brought back to himself when he felt a firm but gentle hand pull him into a hug. He couldn't remember what had just happened. He looked around and recognized the basement. He turned and saw Donasik's broken and bloody body. The fallen angel looked as though he was held by his throat as his chest was ripped open. The wings on the man's back were gone and laying about 2 feet away. Issei was confused, trying to figure out what had happened. He then remembered Asia and looked to the cross at the front of the room, but her body was missing. He went to investigate until he realized that someone was still holding him. He looked down to see white-haired Nekashu holding him around the waist as she kept him from moving. He wondered when she had gotten there and if the others had come as well. Finally, after about 5 minutes, Kaneko looked up into his face and said, "My Issei, I want my Issei back." He furrowed his brow, "But I am Issei." She just shook her head and answered back, "You weren't just. My Issei wouldn't have done that," she stated while pointing to Donoseek's body. Issei stared at the body for a minute before his eyes widened and the brunt of his actions were apparent. He had killed a man. Sure, a bad and evil man, but still, the man would never wake up again. He was gone forever and it was his fault. Issei realized that his greatest fear had come true. He had used his powers with intentions to end a life and continued to do so. He felt like throwing up but instead just held Kaneko tighter and let a few tears fall. In his mind he heard the heads of Layden, John and Lucifer calling his name. When he answered them, they responded with obvious relief. Gallifrey was the first to speak. "How are you feeling? Do you remember anything that happened? Are you feeling any different?" he asked, uncharacteristically serious. "Like hell, no, I don't remember anything, and I felt a little dazed and confused. What happened? What did I do?" Gareth decided to speak up. "Well, I think, by what we have just witnessed, you have just suffered from dragon rage. Dragon rage comes from when a dragon is defeated or beaten multiple times by the same enemy. Eventually the rage of constantly failing causes the dragon's emotions to go into hyperdrive and they lose control. One prime example are the two dragon emperors. The red and white had claimed territory way too close to each other and they were constantly fighting each other. Finally they had defeated each other so many times that they had both went into dragon rage and attacked each other, destroying all in the path of their battle. Dragon's rage will make the body fight to its limit and the entirety of their strength. Once you released yours, the fallen angel stood no chance and you destroyed him. It wasn't your fault to say, you can't beat yourself up for something that you had no control over. The man knew that he was playing with fire, he just didn't have the skill to keep the flames contained, as you could say." Sariba added in. Issei just mentally nodded and went back to the real world. He had been standing there holding Kaneko and trying to control himself. After about another 3 or 4 minutes of standing there, he heard someone call out his name. He turned around and was shocked to see Asia running towards him before she tripped and fell into his arms as they unwound from Kaneko, who didn't seem too pleased about it. He stood there with wide eyes, unable to believe that she was still living. He looked at the doorway that she had just come from to see Riaz and her peerage coming from the door. Riaz smiled at him and said, "Issei, I would like to introduce you to my new bishop." At night Issei lay in his bed, thinking about what had happened after Riaz and the others had arrived. Apparently they had arrived to see Issei cutting into the other man with the chains on his back. They were all taken aback at the hate that was pouring off of Issei. They had been about to try and stop Issei when they saw the poor girl hanging on the cross. Riaz had then looked back at the struggling man and Issei and told her peerage not to do anything. She then spotted something interesting as there was 2 beautiful rings laying on the floor near the two and tried to remember where she had seen them before. Then it struck her, she had seen a drawing of them on a report that she had seen on her brother's desk earlier that day. Apparently they were a sacred gear that had a healing ability to them, and added to the gear was the wielder's strange ability to not only heal humans and angels, but devils as well. So this girl was the wielder of the gear. The fallen angels must have tried to take it, killing the girl in the process, and set my Issei off. The fools should have known what they were dealing with. She then realized that a person with this power would be of great use to her, and decided that she would make this girl her other bishop. Problem was, she had no idea how long the girl had been dead for, and the longer that they have been dead for, the harder it is for her to bring them back. She had ordered her peerage to take her down from the cross and bring her to a room that was attached to the main one that they were in at the moment. After they had moved her, Riaz had Kaneko go back to try and calm Issei, as she and her peerage put together their power to bring her back. It had taken about 5 minutes of continuously pouring their magic into the spell before there was any evidence that their efforts were getting results. She sat up like a lightning bolt, quick enough to make Riaz herself feel like she had gotten whiplash. They had then proceeded to tell her the little that they knew and about her now being Riaz's bishop, to which Asia tried to pray to God for becoming a devil, only for her to get a massive headache. Finally, after a few more minutes of talking with Asia, they were able to convince the girl that it wasn't so bad and now she would be able to spend a lot more time with Issei. Here she had nodded and asked if she could see Issei. That was when she had left the room and embraced him. Issei looked to his side and saw Asia curled up against him, holding him like her life depended on it. He wondered how someone could trust someone so easily to sleep right beside them after only knowing them for a week. He was surprised when Gareth answered his unasked question. "That would also be our doing." "What do you mean?" "Well, dragons have a gland that attracts all compatible mates. The gland will call many mates, but it will also cause the potentials to fight for the right to become your mate. So what you're saying is that I will continue to call mates until I chose one." Well, that's just great, now I am going to have to hurt them, why does my life have to be so difficult? Actually no, if the dragon that is attracting mates is strong enough, they will be able to take many mates without causing fights between them, until only the strongest remain, ensuring strong offspring. Also, as the gland resides in your throat, you will be able to take many mates. As each mate that you take will cancel out a gland's production, but seeing as we have many glands, it will take many mates to cancel them out. So they don't really love me? Would you love someone that you only knew for a week? So they only care for me because of some stupid glands. That is another part of the glands, they make you and the potential mate tell each other things that you usually wouldn't. As time goes on, you and the mate will get closer, ensuring that you and the potential could truly love each other. Once you and the mate do fall for each other, you both will get the other's mark. For the female it will be on the back of their neck, for you it will be around your heart. At this Issei became surprised. He barely pushed Kaneko off of his chest some, enough to where he could pull down his shirt. He was looking for something that he had seen 3 days back, but hadn't known what it was, and the heads of Leyden were having their annual argument about whatever they could. He had decided to ask them later, but had forgotten about it through everything that was going on. Now he found it again, 3 symbols that were right above his heart, one was a bright white cat head, with 2 white tails coming for behind it. Here he sat up and brushed his hand through Kaneko's hair, away from her neck, and saw many green dragon heads intertwined all attached to a reptilian body, which was laying atop of a golden apple. He lay back wondering when that had happened. He remembered seeing Kaneko's face in the morning had always brightened his day, making him smile. He again checked under his shirt again looking at the second symbol. This one was similar to the first, but this one was black. He looked at Kuroka who was pressed against his left, using his chest as a pillow. He smiled at her peaceful face, happy to know that she truly loved him, as he looked at her barely exposed neck, seeing the same symbol. He finally looked at the last symbol, and saw the symbol of a nun, holding a sword in one hand and a Bible in the other. He smiled knowing that the only other person that he could truly say that he loved was his old friend Irina. He was happy that she hadn't forgotten him after all of his time. You know what? He thought to Garth. I think that I can accept this life. I'm glad. But that Issei wrapped his arms around Kaneko, pulling her close and falling to a blissful sleep. Issei awoke the next morning, again before all of the others. He lay there, thinking about his conversation with Garth last night and what would happen now that they had pushed the Rouge Fallen Angels out of the area. It was Friday and Issei was in a little bit of a grumpy mood, as he disliked Fridays. He felt as though they were there to only tease people, practically saying that it was only one more day until the weekend. Finally, Issei was brought out of his silent grumping by a pair of soft lips upon his own. He opened his eyes to see Kaneko pulling back, only for his vision to be blocked again by a sea of black, as Kuroka stole a kiss as well. When she finally was pulled back about 5 minutes later, with a little help from Kaneko, who had pulled her sister away after she had started to get a little more passionate. Issei was able to slip out between them as they started to argue about how long each of them got to kiss Issei. After he had relieved himself, he stepped back into his room to see all of the girls starting to rise and prepare for the day, sans for Asia who was blushing and asking why all of them were undressing before Issei. When they had all finally gotten dressed and clean they had all started down the stairs, ignoring the elevator, as Erebor refused to allow Issei to use it and the girls didn't want to be separated from Issei if they didn't have to be. When they had gotten to the kitchen, Issei's mother had everyone a plate of food ready until she noticed that Asia was with them. Not knowing who she was or that she was staying over, she of course hadn't made her food. When his mother had started back towards the stove, she was stopped as Issei handed Asia his plate and instead just went with a cup of tea. He knew that he was going to regret that action later, as Erebor screamed at him that he needed the calories that he had just threw away and that he was going to have to double the exercise to make up for it. He just sighed and stood with the girls as they finished the breakfast. They walked to school, early as usual, as usually when they had Sona and Tsubaki with them, they would have to leave to be able to accomplish some tasks that they needed to do. The two hadn't arrived with the others last night, as they had go to a meeting with their family about some new offer of a marriage contract for her. Issei had been angered about the prospect of her parents practically selling her away, but Riaz had assured him that Sona would find a way to get out of it. Apparently it wasn't the first time that Sona's parents had tried to sell her to some snobby rich guy. When she had found out about it, Sona had challenged the guy to a game of chess to test his worthiness. Long story short, she had wiped the floor with him. She had then stated to her parents that she refused to marry someone so inadequate. That had not sat well with the guy, and he had attempted to attack Sona, only for Sona's sister, Seraphol Leviathan, had blown his arm off and threatened to also castrate him if he took too long to leave the premises. Issei had decided that he would try with all of his might to keep Sona happy, as he would rather not have to deal with a pissed-off Satan. As they neared the gates of the school, Issei was tackled in a hug from an uncharacteristically clingy Sona. Issei was surprised as she preferred not to show emotion in public, as she found that it gave people tools to cause her harm. Now here she was laying on top of him, in front of all of the people who hung around the school during the morning, hugging him like her life depended on it. Issei stopped at that thought. Did her life depend on it? He looked around at the crowd, seeing if anything was out of the normal. Issei first looked at the girls, seeing them all as shocked as he was. He didn't see anyone behind them, so he continued to look around. He saw the usual when it was announced that he had a girl's affection. All of the guys present looked at him, as if they thought that looks could kill. All of the girls present, sans the one that practically lived with Issei, looked at Sona with jealousy. Finally he spotted someone in the window on the second floor of the school. Issei spotted a black-haired girl that looked an awful lot like Sona, though she was wearing a magic girl costume. She was looking at them with interest. Issei, still not knowing what was going on but not wanting to unintentionally hurt Sona, decided to go with it and pulled her closer and kissed her, causing her to blush a bright red. It was about 30 seconds later before Lucifer said, "That must be Serafal Citri. She must be here for some business with her sister." Issei agreed and out of the corner of his eye, saw her turn around and disappear. From there he waited for Sona to get up, but she seemed to have gotten comfortable as she just laid there, right on top of him. Finally Issei decided to ask, "Comfortable there, are you?" When he asked this her previously closed eyes flew open and she blushed once again as she remembered where they were at and sat up quickly. He let out a small chuckle at her face and stood up after she had gotten off of his chest. He then brushed himself off and beckoned for the girls to lead the way to the principal's office so that they could get Asia registered for the school. Issei sat in class in his new seat. The teacher had thankfully decided to move Issei to a new seat after Asia had been assigned to his class and she had asked the teacher if she could sit beside Issei so that she could be near her only friend in the class. This of course had brought outrageous bouts from Reiner and Kuroka as they realized that they had missed that golden opportunity to be near him. So now he sat in the 3 rows over beside the window, near the front, with Asia to his right and 2 of the girls in his class that had tried to seduce Issei multiple times throughout the school year. So now instead of being constantly annoyed by the idiocy of Motohama and his constant glares, he was receiving seductive looks thrown at him, trying to take his attention away. Issei was fine with the change, though a bit annoyed that she could only be doing it because of the dragon's attraction, as he called it. The class seemed to be going good until Motohama, who throughout class seemed to be about to have his head blow up after realizing that Issei had another girl that hung around him, stood up from his seat all of a sudden screamed out, "I challenge you Issei Haidu to a duel for the hands of the dames that you forced to hang around you. I speak for all of us single guys at this school that you have crossed the line by taking so many of the hot girls for yourself. If you decide that you are not a wimp and accept this challenge then you will meet me outside right after the bell rings. If you deny this challenge then you must admit that you are a coward and release these girls from your evil clutches." He finished off pointing at him as though he was Satan's incarnate, which he might not be too far from the truth. Issei sighed and looked at Motohama as though he was one of the annoying people on the street, yelling out how everyone was doing everything wrong. Deciding to remain sitting, Issei replied, "I refuse to your stupid challenge, as I have already proven to you that I am a better fighter than you. Plus the thought of competing with the prize of a woman's love to the victor repulses me. I find that it would be best to allow the woman to decide who she shall love. To say that you would get the hand of one of my friends if I were to lose pisses me off, as you are practically saying that you would force your way onto one of them if you had the chance. Now let me tell you something, if I were to compete and by some weird chance you were to win the hand of say Asia and then the next day she came to me and told me that you violated her, I would castrate you with the flagpole in front of the school and leave you hanging there by your nutsack." Throughout his entire speech Issei had kept his tone even and civil, making his declaration all the more terrifying for Motohama, who grabbed his privates. "Now if you do not mind, I think the teacher would like to get back to teaching her class after being so rudely interrupted." The teacher nodded to Issei, though with a slight fearful look in his eyes. Issei guessed from what he had said a minute ago and told Motohama that he was going to have to report to him after class had ended. The rest of class went by smoothly, though Issei became bored after he realized that Gareth had already taught him most of the material that they were covering. So he opted to spend the class talking to the heads of Leyden and helping Asia with anything that she had trouble with. After class Issei, Asia, Reiner and Kuroka left the class ahead of everyone else, wanting to get far enough away to be able to not be bothered by the idiotic duo, and for once fate seemed to be on his side as he made it to the Orc room where Riaz and Sona were at with their respective peerages. The two seemed to be in an argument about something and were seemingly coming to a conclusion when they saw him. Sona blushed a little and seemed to try hide her face, while Riaz came over to him and hugged him while drawing imaginary circles on his chest with her finger. "Issei," she said seductively, "I was going to try and take my 3 new peerage members tonight to get them their new familiars, but meanwhile Sona there said that she wants to go and is trying to keep us from going. We have come to a conclusion that you should pick who gets to go and who doesn't." "So Issei," she said giving him an innocent pleading look, "who do you think should be the one that goes?" Issei stood there awkwardly as Riaz started to get even closer to him until she was pulled away from him by a still blushing Sona who was still refusing to look at him. Issei was about to ask her what was wrong until she lunged out and kissed him. He was caught off guard and took a second to respond. About 30 seconds later she pulled back and stated, "You should allow me to go. I don't try using cheap tactics to influence you." Riaz narrowed her eyes and asked, "What was the kiss then?" Sona looked at her and stated, "People who love each other kiss when they see each other. I was just doing what our love dictates." Issei then had them both look at them with slight pleading in their eyes. He was at a loss on what to do and tried to turn to the heads for some advice. "Make them mud wrestle in Bickiness to see who can go," shouted Gallifrey. "It would make sense for you to choose Riaz since she has more of your harem members in her peerage than Sona does," Gareth said, trying to come up with a logical choice for Issei. "Stop stalling and just choose one, either way one will be able to go while the other doesn't," said Erebor gruffly, as if annoyed by Issei's hesitance. "Careful Issei, whichever one that you pick might make the other believe that you prefer them less," warned Sareba. "Betting a familiar is a big step for a young devil Issei, keep that in mind," Lucifer added in. "How about you make them compete for the opportunity?" John decided to enter the conversation. At that Issei brightened, thanking John profusely for being the only one to give valuable advice, making the others sulk. "I want you two to compete for the opportunity." At that the two gave him weird looks, then they looked at each other, then back at him and shrugged. "What did you have in mind?" "Mud wrestling," screamed Gallifrey. "That's stupid," stated Erebor. "The quiz?" proposed Gareth. "That's stupid," again stated Erebor. "A magic duel," Sareba stated. "That's stupid." Erebor decided to again state. "A rating game," stated Lucifer. "That would take too much time, and that's stupid," Erebor said. "How about a game of tennis?" John said. "That's stupid," said Erebor. "Fine, then what would you do?" asked Issei, starting to get fed up with Erebor. Erebor was silent for a second before stating, "A duel to the death," he said in a dark voice. "Now that's just plain dumb," said Gareth in a fake southern accent. "I'm going to go with a tennis match as that would take the least amount of time and there is little possibility for either of them to get hurt." "Back in the real world," Issei stated, "a tennis match." They both looked surprised for a moment before a wicked smile appeared on Ria's face. "Are you sure had isn't an excuse for you to see us in those skimpy little tennis uniforms?" At that Sona went red and Issei was about to deny it when, "I'll do it," said Sona. "You're on," said Riaz as she gave him a suggestive wink. A half hour later, Issei was standing on the side of the tennis court along with both of the king's peerages as Riaz and Sona went at it in tennis. It was interesting type of match as both of the girls would dedicate every point to him. He was watching the ball go back and forth until he felt Tsubaki tapping on his shoulder. When he asked what she needed, she said, "I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I forgot Sona's water bottle in the locker room and she left me in charge of the peerage, so I can't just leave to grab it. So you want me to go get it?" To which she nodded. "Wouldn't I be ill-received in the girls' locker room?" "No, in fact you should be the only one in there as the girls' tennis team leaves 15 minutes after school ends, as they practice in the morning." Issei nodded and stood and started to walk towards the girls' locker room. When he got there, Issei felt strange as memories of his first time in here flashed in his mind. He found the water bottle by the locker with student president printed on it. He was about to leave when he came face to breast with a girl who was pulling her shirt off 10 feet from Issei. He froze not knowing what to do. The girl finally got the shirt off and opened her eyes to look straight at Issei. She froze as well as the two just stared at each other until the girl decided that she wanted answers. You do realize that you are standing in the girls' locker room and that I can have you expelled for being in here, right?" "I'm so sorry, my friend wanted me to get something for her and I didn't expect anyone else to be here. Please expect my apology and I will leave straight away." "Not so fast, I'm not going to give up this golden opportunity so easily. I recognize you, Issei Haidu, runner-up Prince of Kuo, quickly usurping you predecessor and the lover of multiple women who make up your harem." She stated this while circling him. "Well, not lover per se as I'm still a virgin. But you're not denying the fact that you have a harem?" "Well no, but the harem wasn't my idea. But you still allowed it to happen and you took multiple of the most popular girls in the school to it. Well they practically added themselves." "Oh really? Well then, you must make me a member of your harem or else I will go to the principal that you were sneaking around the locker room with the intent of taking advantage of little Almi. You're devious." "You're calling me devious, but I'm not the one sleeping with devils. Just because they are devils doesn't make them evil." "Oh really, ever read the Bible?" "Well, yes, but do you really believe everything that you read?" "Yes, some may have been complete evil and did horrible acts, but don't let that darken your feelings on the rest of them." "Well I guess that I will have to see myself as well." "What? Why?" "Because do you think that I am seriously going to give up having the chance to date one of the most popular boys in school? So you're only doing this because I'm popular?" "No, I'm not that shallow. I also want to because you're cute, smart, strong, and if worst comes to worst, you will be able to protect me. Why would you need protection? Well, being the heir of one of the top beast-taming families could put the spotlight on you for a couple of different reasons. Rival tamers, ransom, blackmail, marriage contracts. Issei winced at last one and brought Kiam's attention to him. What? I just don't like the thought of marriage contracts, they seem like you're just selling your children away for your own benefit. She nodded at this and said, I agree, but unfortunately I don't have a say. Issei responded, well anyways, you get to join my harem in exchange for you not going to the principal, and you gain a popular boyfriend/bodyguard. You sound so sad when you say it, but don't worry, I'm not stupid. If I find that we truly can't be together, then I'll end it and we both go our separate ways. Issei just sighed and agreed before asking if she wanted to accompany him to the tennis game, to which she declined, having already made plans. So Issei left the locker room remembering Sona's water bottle, trying to figure out what had just happened. When he arrived back at the tennis court, it was to see Rias scoring the winning point. She fist pumped and shouted out, I dedicate this winning point to my most beloved Issei. Sona admitted defeat and left the courts with Rias. When they arrived, Issei was attacked by a monstrous hug from Rias, which was quickly followed by a much gentler hug from Sona. Issei congratulated them and followed them as they started heading out for his house. When they arrived, both Sona and Rias took showers and changed into regular clothes. After that, they all headed to the living room to relax. Congratulations on your win, Rias, it was a great match, said Issei. Thank you, though Sona did put up a great, relied Rias. Oh well, I guess we can just go next month. I hope that your new members find suitable familiars, Sona said. Well, we can go tomorrow, though it does sadden me that Issei will not be there to help me. Rias pouted. It's fine, Rias, I'm certain that you will be able to do this without my help, Issei told her while rubbing the back of his neck. The next day, Rias and her peerage left early in the morning as she said that she had business during the day that she needed to do before they went to the land of the familiars. Sorry if there is a name, then I don't know it. So Issei, seeing through Sona's expressionless mask, recognized that she was feeling sad about her loss, so he decided to take her on a date. She had brightened up greatly when Issei had asked and had immediately agreed, which led to Issei and Sona walking through town. They first decided to check out a movie theater and had watched a new horror movie that had come out. Issei wasn't sure why Sona had asked to see that movie, as throughout the entire movie she had her face buried in his chest. Issei found it mildly amusing that Sona, being a high-class devil, was terrified of a man in a clown costume, setting people on fire. After that, they had decided to get lunch and found a nice cafe near the park with a friendly atmosphere and the workers wearing maid costumes. Issei found himself more than once watching the sway of the waitress's hips as they go by in their costumes. He felt annoyed at himself for it and decided to try and keep his attention on Sona by having a conversation. I'm glad that we could spend the day together, I have been wanting to do this for some time. She smiled and said, then why didn't you ask earlier if you have been so anticipating it? Well, I was wanting to get to know you a little bit better before we did so that I could give you a great date and not do anything that you dislike. Well then, you better have done your homework as I expect the most wonderful date that you can provide. I do enjoy a challenge. At that, the woman that had been serving them brought them their check. When the woman left, Sona looked at Issei with a questioning gaze, waiting to see what he would do. She smiled when he pulled out only enough to pay for his own meal, as she didn't like the stereotype that the man was supposed to pay for everything on the first date. After they had paid and left, they decided to take a stroll through the park. As they walked around, Sona was telling Issei about her childhood and how she has always tried to grow as strong as her older sister. He had laughed when she told him that she had once stolen her sister's fake magic wand, thinking it real, and tried to cast spells. Once she had been told the truth, she had decided that she hated magic girls. They were about to leave the park when a man followed by 3 others walked up. Issei sighed as he saw that the man had a smug look about him. Yo, sweet cheeks, why don't you dump that loser and come with us? We'll show you a good time. Please, you could never compare to my Issei, he is twice the man that you'll ever be, and to prove it, he'll take you on in any challenge you want and win. Sona replied, getting a raised eyebrow from Issei. The man had started laughing loudly, then seeing Issei shrug and agree to a challenge, stopped and said, you can't be serious. What are you scared? Fine, bring a kid, I challenge you to a motorcycle race. I don't got a motorcycle. Fine, then you can use Tiny, said the man, pointing to a 6.5-foot man who probably around 300 pounds. Issei heard the other 2 chuckling and whispering to each other how slow Tiny's bike was. Issei agreed, since it was for Sona. They left the park to the parking lot nearby. When they got there, Issei was given a very large bike that looked as if it were built for a giant. Issei saw the size of the engine and couldn't understand how such a large thing could be so slow. After they had decided to the race, they both revved their engines and waited for the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then they were off. Issei pulled ahead by a very large margin right off the back, flying past the other man, who could only stare alongside his crew as the motorcycle that went no faster than 50 miles an hour easily exceeded over 150. Issei was long gone and the man knew it. By the time that he reached the finishing line, he saw that the annoying boy and pretty girl were already walking away. He walked over to Tiny, who was holding a small piece of paper, to which he asked what it was. In response, Tiny looked up and said, "It's a weight loss pamphlet that the girl gave me." Issei and Sona had decided that they had had enough excitement for the day and had decided to go check out some of the local shops. Whenever Sona would look at something that interested her, Issei would give his honest opinion on what he thought, knowing that even though she was devil, Sona preferred that someone be straightforward with her instead of giving false lies. At the end of the day, Issei and Sona started to walk home. Throughout the day, Sona had started to open up more to Issei, giving him new information about herself throughout the day. She had told him her favorite dessert, fruit, just fruit. She had told him her favorite season, winter, as she loved the cold. She had told him a lot more as well, and he treasured each and everything that he learned about her. They were still walking when Sona reached out and stopped him. When he looked at her, he realized that she wouldn't meet his gaze. He was concerned about what was wrong. Nut remained silent as Sona hated to be rushed. Finally she looked at him and he saw guilt in her eyes as she said, "Issei, there's something that I have to tell you." "Yes." "Well, recently I was at a meeting with my parents and they were telling me that they had set up a marriage contract for me to another family." Issei's face clearly told her how he felt about that. She paused for a minute before continuing, "Well, when I tried to talk them out of it, they refused to reconsider the proposition, claiming that they had already been paid my bride price. They had been ready to sell me off until I told them that I was already engaged." He grew a questionable look but held his tongue. "Well, they demanded to know who it was and well, I kind of told them that it was you." "What?" "I'm sorry, Issei, but I was unable to convince them otherwise. That was why I was hugging you at school yesterday for so long, as my sister had followed me to see if it was true. I know that I shouldn't have done it and I would understand if you wish for me to tell them the truth, then I will and I will accept the consequences," she said with a saddened voice. Issei was silent for a moment before asking, "Who was it?" At her questioning look he continued, "Who were you engaged to?" "Oh, his name was Kato Barent. He comes from the Barent family, of course. They are truly a cruel family and the 5 minutes I spent with him, I instantly hated him as he treated me like I was nothing but a toy for him to find pleasure in. He told me that he expected for me to be a virgin, which isn't asking too much, but he also demanded that I be willing to consent to him lending me out to his friends after he took it. I had tried to tell my parents what a monster the man was but they wouldn't listen. My sister told me that she would try and make them see reason, but I doubt that they would have changed their minds." "Wait, your parents are willing to put you through hell for their own benefit. If anything, they are the monsters, as that is the only way to classify someone that is willing to put their child through that is terrible. They're not that bad, I mean they do love me and want to try and give me the best that they can, but they need the deal between our families to extend their business. So to make money, they sold you? I guess you could say that. Well, I don't agree with that and apparently you don't either, so I will agree to be your finance, but I want something in return." She gave him a questioning look. "What do you want?" "I want the option for us to postpone the marriage until we both love each other truthfully." She looked shocked at the request but nodded in agreement. After that they continued on their walk to his house. About halfway there Sona grabbed his hand and said, "By the way, they are planning on testing you sometime to test your worthiness." He held her hand tighter and said, "Looking forward to it." Issei was walking towards the orc room. Riaz had told him that she needed to talk to him and asked if he could visit after class. When he made it there he saw all of Riaz's peerage there, excluding Riaz herself. Issei sat on the couch and instantly and with much scrambling he had Kaneko on his lap with a pouting Kuroka and Akeno watching. He just chuckled at their antics. It was about 10 minutes before Riaz walked into the room, apologizing for being late. She sat behind her desk and said, "We need to start getting more contracts as we haven't gotten any new ones in a while. So, I have a list for each of you that you need to complete for the next 2 weeks." She said as she handed papers to her peerage. "That's pretty much it, though I do want someone to accompany Asia to some of her contracts, as since she hasn't been in the area for a while to help her find her way." "I'll help her out," said Issei. "It would be best if I did so, since the others already have contracts and I have nothing else to do other than make up for Erebor that I have been skipping for the past few weeks." "Who's Erebor?" asked Asia, looking confused. "Oh, he's part of my sacred gear. Yes, our present dragon appears to hear voices inside of his head," said Kiba. "Well, considering that these voices have failed to get me to burn down any buildings yet, we have nothing to worry about. From what you have told us about the voices, I think that they would be the ones keeping you from burning down any buildings. It was only that one time." "What?" "Moving on. Hey. Don't try and change the subject." So like I was saying, I'll be glad to help Asia out. What about me? Said Rainer, putting on a little child face, I haven't been here that long either. Yes, but unlike Asia, you are able to cast a tracing charm to find your way to the place. Said Riaz. Yay, but what if someone tries to take advantage of me? Then I will pity that person for their stupidity. Issei thought aloud. What's that supposed to mean? Anyway, said Riaz, getting annoyed that the meeting was starting to get out of control, report to me when you have finished all of your contracts. Well, that's about it, now will you all excuse us? I would like to talk to Issei about something. The others agreed and left, leaving Riaz and Issei alone. Riaz turned to Issei and with a completely straight business face asked Issei, what would I have to do for you to convince you to take my virginity? What? I want you to make love to me. Why? Well, it's complicated, but let's just say that my family has made a marriage contract between me and someone that I dislike, and one of the clauses of the contract states that I must be a virgin for the contract to be valid. So I want you to null the contract. Surely there is another way. Well, the contract can be voided if he decides to end it, but I know that he never will. So please do this for me, Issei. Is taking my virginity that disgusting to you? No, it's just that I think that you should give it to someone that you truly love. But, I do love you. No you don't, it's just part of my sacred gear that makes you think that you do. Are you talking about the dragon's gland? At his nod, Riaz continued, then you have nothing to worry about, Issei, as one of the things that can null the effects of the gland is knowing about it and what effects it causes. I knew about the gland as soon as I met you, Issei, as when I was little my father had a friend who had a sacred gear that contained a dragon. Before I was allowed to come near the man, my father explained it all to me. I have even told the rest of my peerage. Sona and her peerage already know about the gland, as her pawn Saji also has a dragon-based secret gear. We are all unaffected by the gland, except for Asia most likely, as I have yet to have time to tell her. Then why haven't your marks appeared yet? If you're talking about your mate marks, it may be because that you don't love us yet. But why do you all love me? I mean, we haven't known each other for very long, so I don't understand what I could have done to make you all love me. Well, there are multiple reasons. I fell in love with you when I saw the extent you were willing to go to protect those that you care for. The raw anger that you have towards those who are strong but prey on the weak, and to top it all off, you're not bad looking. Akeno I think is falling for you because you are someone strong, unmovable, someone that can support her no matter what happens. I've seen how you comfort her at night when she wakes up from nightmares. She's been through a lot and needs someone like you in her life. Sona loves you for your cunningness, don't even know if this is a word, and the way that no matter who you are against, you can defeat them before any blows are needed. Wow. I take it that you have all talked about it before. Yep. Oh, and argued about who gets to take your virginity. Well, if you do love me, then why do you keep trying to add more girls to my harem? Aren't you supposed to get jealous of any other girls who try to get close to me? Well, one reason is that with your dragon stamina, mixed your human, devil, and angel staminas, none of us will be able to keep up with you in bed, so the more girls there, the longer of a reprieve the rest of us can have. At this, a massive blush appeared on Issei's face, and Gallifrey started singing his worship for Riaz. And I have always dreamed about running a harem. Plus since I was the one that out together your harem, it only makes sense for you to make me your first, putting me in control of the other harem girls. You have a control fetish, don't you? Riaz only smiled at this, so, back to the question, will you take my virginity? I don't know, are you sure that you want to give it to someone that you know doesn't love you? I'm sure. I know that you're not one of those people that would hold this over me later or brag to others about. Well. Here they were interrupted by a white seal appearing on the floor and a woman dressed as a maid stepping out of it. Riaz looked a little scared as the woman appeared and Issei prepared himself for a fight just in case something happened. When the woman had fully materialized in front of them, Riaz said, Issei, this is my brother's queen and wife, Grafia. Nice to meet you. Grafia said, before turning to Riaz, I heard what you said and I thought that we had already warned you against trying to break this contract. You don't want to disappoint your brother, do you? Hey. That's not fi. It's fine, Issei, Riaz interrupted Issei, in fact I think that we're done for now. Can you please let me and Grafia speak in private? Issei left, though not happy about it. Not knowing what else to do and not wanting to go home just yet, he decided to take a walk around town. He was walking beside an alleyway when he heard a sound of muffled screaming and something slapping. He took off towards the sound and came to a scene that caused his blood to boil. 3 guys were surrounding a girl, one was holding her hands behind her back, the other was tying her mouth shut, and the third was attempting to rip her clothes off. What caused Issei even more anger was that he recognized them. The girl was his once middle school friend Mia, who he had stopped talking to when she had went to America to study. The 3 guys were the same bullies that were harassing her when she refused to be the leader's girl. The one that was stripping her, the leader, was talking to her as she struggled. You know how long I waited for this? Waiting for you to let your guard down, away from that cock-blocking boyfriend of yours. Only for you to leave. Well, now you're all alone, Issei doesn't know that you're back and you have no one waiting for you. I'm gonna enjoy this. You're going to enjoy having your dick ripped off. The three of them whirled around to see Issei standing there, looking pissed. Why the fuck do you always have to show up? The leader yelled as he ran at Issei, only for Issei to lift one leg and slam his foot into the bully's chest, knocking him to the ground, rendering him unconscious. The other two bullies, wetting themselves in fear, tried to run away, only to be grabbed by Issei. Issei then spent a good 5 minutes reteaching them why they should fear him. He would have spent longer but decided that making sure that she was okay was more important than adding more bruises to their collection. He walked over to her and helped her off of the ground where she had been thrown by the two lackeys. When she recognized him, she broke down crying and seemed to try and mold her body to his as she held him as if the world depended on it. Mia finally calmed down about 10 minutes later and blushed when she realized how close she was sitting to Issei and scooted back a little. Mia. I thought that you went to America. Well, I did, but my father died and one of his last wishes were for me to move back to Japan. She said, tearing up. Issei remembered Mia talking about it once, how her mother had died during childbirth and all she had growing up was her father. He also remembered that her father had been against her going to America but wasn't going to stop her if that was where her heart was set. Her father had been depressed for a while after that, so Issei would sometimes visit and keep the man company. Then one day the man had to go to another city as he worked in construction and where he was needed was too far to drive to every day. That had been about 3 weeks ago. Issei never told any of the girls where he was going when he visited the man, as he felt that spending time with the guy was his sort of personal time, as usually him and the guy would just sit around and watch television. Issei became a little saddened over the man's death. So where are you staying now? I am currently living in a hotel room, as my father's house was given to my mother's parents and they still blame me for my mother's death, so I don't expect them to let me stay there. Issei started to get angry over that, but kept his nerve for Mia's sake. He then had an idea. Why don't you come live with me? But, you're a boy. Yes, and you're a girl, and Kuroka's a girl, and so are the other people who practically live at my house. You have a bunch of girls living in your house. Hey. It wasn't my idea. Well, I guess as long as you don't try to steal my underwear too often, then that will be fine. Wait, why would I steal your underwear? Isn't that what you teen boys always try to do? Not me, and even if I did want ladies' underwear, I would have so many donors that I would drown in panties and bras. So you're a playboy now? Not by choice. Well, if you are a playboy, then you wouldn't mind carrying me to my hotel now, would you? Issei shrugged and picked her up, carrying her out of the alleyway, making sure to step on the still unconscious bully, as Mia blushed and yelled about how she was joking about carrying her. Issei paid her no mind and kept walking, with her finally giving in and allowing him to carry her. After they got to the hotel and picked up her stuff, they started to walk to Issei's place. When they arrived, Mia just gaped about the size of his house now. He chuckled and opened the door, holding it for Mia as she walked in. Issei only got 3 feet into the doorway before he was tackled by Asia, who happened to only be wearing an apron. Asia. Where are your clothes? Oh, well, someone at school told me today that if you really cared for a boy, then you would cook him dinner while only wearing an apron. Issei, who is this? Asked Mia. Oh, sorry. This is Asia, one of the people living at my house. Asia, this is my friend Mia, who until recently lived in the US. Hi, it's nice to meet you. Asia said while giving a small bow. Yeah, likewise. Mia said, obviously uncomfortable about Asia's state of dress. That's when they heard a rumble and a lot of voices coming down the hallway. Issei grabbed Mia and Asia and put them against a wall before going back to the middle of the entrance hall, holding out his arms and bracing his legs. Mia looked at him curiously before, like a bomb, girls shot out of the hallway and tackled Issei to the floor. Asia jumped into when she heard Issei give a yelp of pain, claiming that she would make his pain go away. After a while the pile settled and they all stood, taking notice of Mia. Hey Mia, long time no see, not here to steal away my Issei, are you? Well, even if you are, it's too late, you admitted defeat when you left. Said Kuroka, the only one of the girls that recognized Issei's old friend. Kuroka had been friends with Mia as well back then, until Mia stated that she disliked cats, which caused Kuroka to go into a huff and refuse to come over. Issei was able to resolve the conflict, but after that, Kuroka changed her view of Mia from friend to rival of Issei's affections. Oh, hi Kuroka. Oh, hey, who's the new girl Issei? Asked Rainer. Everyone, this is my friend from middle school Mia. Mia, these are the people that I was telling you about. You've met Asia and Kuroka. This is Kaneko. Issei's future bride. Kaneko said. And Kuroka's little sister. This is Akeno. Issei's concubine. Akeno said, while giggling. This is Rainer. Issei's pillow. Rainer chimed in, oh so helpfully. This is Sona. Nice to meet you, Issei sighed in relief by her normal greeting, until, try to take Issei from me, and I'll leave you on a deserted island. And this is Tsubaki. Nice to meet you. The last girl, Rias, isn't back yet, as she has something to do at the school. Well, it's nice to meet all of you. I got to say, I wasn't expecting to come back and see that Issei got himself a harem while I was gone. Actually, Rias was the one that got me a harem. Though, I'm not complaining as they're all amazing people. Issei said, causing them all to blush. Well everyone, I would like you to treat Mia nicely as she is going to be staying with us for the foreseeable future. They all agreed and started bombarding her with questions, as Issei sent her a sorrowful look and slipped off, leaving her to deal with the girls. He went to his room, where he was shocked to find Rias, laying on his bed cradling a pillow. He curled up behind her and hugged, causing her to stiffen, before she relaxed against him, starting to let some of her tears out. What's wrong? Grafia said that if I tried to break the contract again, my family would be forced to make me go back to the underworld and keep me there until after the wedding. Why are parents of the underworld so hard-headed? Don't they realize the pain that they are putting their children through, making them marry for profit and not love? It's just the way of the higher-class devils. No matter how hard you try and believe it to be, your life is never yours. I don't agree with that. So, the only way for the contract to be ended is for your suitor to end it. Yep. Don't worry Rias, if nothing else, I will make sure that you are able to choose who you want to marry. Thank you Issei yawned, you have no idea how much this means to me. Sleep now Rias, you've had a long day and you've earned a good rest. Rias nodded and cuddled even closer to Issei as she drifted off to sleep. At night as all of the girls, as usual, crawled into his bed and drifted off, Issei lay there thinking about how to help ensure that Rias wins. He was following a certain path in his head, trying to figure out how it would end, when his door creaked open. Issei looked up and saw Mia standing there. Looking shocked at the sight of all of the girls sleeping with Issei. She was shocked out of her stupor when Issei said, nightmares. Nod, scared to sleep alone. Nod, you wanted to see if you could sleep with me? More hesitant nod, come on. I think Sona and Tsubaki purposely left you a spot in between them. She walked over to the bed slowly and Issei could see her blushing. She crawled in between the two girls and laid down. Issei. Yeah? Are you guys human? What makes you ask that? Well, I was walking around and I saw Kuroka and her sister arguing about some chest spot before they both grew cattails and ears. And I think that I saw Asia healing a cut on Tsubaki's hand with some green glow coming from her hand. No, we're not human, well Asia is half and I am partially. But the rest aren't. What are you guys then? You don't sound very frightened about learning that we're not human. Well, I trust you even if you aren't fully human. Well, I am part dragon, part human, part devil, and part angel. Seriously? Yep. You don't look very dragon-esque to me, nor do I see you as a devil. I'll show you my wings in the morning. You have wings. We all do. So what are the others? Well Sona and Rias are full devils, and Rainer and Akeno are half devil, half fallen angel. Kaneko and Kuroka are half Nekashu and half devil. And Tsubaki is half devil, half human. So you're all devils. Some more than others. So, do you guys come from hell? No, it's called the underworld, that's where the worlds of the devils and fallen angels are. Just so you know that even though we are devils, doesn't mean that we are evil. I know. Like I said earlier, I trust you, and if you are a devil, then they're not as bad as humans originally thought. I'm glad. After that, they just lay there in quiet, eventually letting sleep overtake them. The next day at the Orc building, Rias and her peerage, plus Issei and Mia who had transferred to Kuo Academy, were sitting around and talking. Suddenly a mark appeared on the floor. It was a deep red, with the image of a phoenix in the middle of it. A fire erupted out of the symbol, frightening Mia to the point of her jumping into her lap. The figure of a man appeared in the middle of the fire. The fire started to die down, revealing a blonde-haired man with deep lines across his face. Instantly, Issei hated this man's face. It was smug, and the look in his eyes made it obvious that he thought everyone was lesser than him. Riser. Stated Rias. Ah, my beautiful bride-to-be. How are you? I've already told you Riser, I have no intention of marrying you. Oh, but I don't think that you have a choice, seeing as your family has been backed against the wall. Plus, I'll do anything to make you see reason. Even if that means burning all of your servants to death. Issei was startled out of his ideas of which way would be the most painful way to kill the guy with Erebor when Lucifer started to talk. So this is one of my devils, despicable. I agree, he must have been one spoiled brat who was never told no. That's enough Riser. A voice came out of nowhere as a white seal appeared on the floor. Out of the seal stepped Grafia. If he remembered correctly. She stood in the middle of the room. I have been told to come here by command of Cerziches to make sure that no violence occurs. Of course, I would never try anything in front of the strongest queen, why not even I think myself believes I stand a chance against you. Now, seeing as Riaz has still not warmed up to the idea of marrying you, Surziches has decided that she may challenge you to a rating game in order for her to be able to cancel the contract. What? Oh, do you have a problem with that? No, ma'am, no problem. It's just, I thought that our families had already decided that we were to be married, as the underworld is in desperate need for more pure-blooded devils. Well then, Riser, I guess that just means that you will have to win. Oh, I intend to, ma'am. But that Riser turned his attention back to Riaz. So Riaz, I already know that you are planning to accept this opportunity, so I must ask if this is all of your servants. All of the, except for Issei with the brown hair and Mia the girl beside him. Speaking of Mia, Issei turned to her and saw that her eyes were wealed and it was obvious that she was feeling out of her depth. Issei grabbed her hand and gave her a small smile when she turned to look at him. She seemed to relax a bit and they put their attention back at the conversation between the two kings. Well then it seems that you are a bit out of luck as I have 15, he said as he snapped making his peerage appear before them, a full set. Issei looked at Riser's peerage and saw that they were all female and that one of them looked similar to Riser, wearing the same smug look as the guy. And to prove the strength of my peerage, here he turned to one of his servants and nodded as she started to run straight at Issei. I'll demonstrate their power by knocking out this whelp. The woman was now a foot from Issei as she swung her staff at his chest. Whop, the sound rang out in the orc room as Issei caught the staff with one hand, shocking the wielder of it. With a tug, Issei pulled it from her grasp and snapped it with his hands. Riser became enraged. How dare you destroy that? That staff was worse than the miserable hovel that you call a house. Doubt it. You miserable weakling. Do you know who I am? An oversized child who doesn't understand, say it, not spray it. Issei said, wiping his face. I am Riser Phoenix, third heir of one of the greatest pure-blooded devil families in the underworld. I stand 1,000. And you talk a lot too. Hi Riser Phoenix, third heir of one of the greatest pure-blooded families in the underworld. Man, your life must have sucked in preschool, needing to learn how to write all of that out. You're trying my patience. And try what you don't have. I don't need to put up with this. Riaz, you have 2 weeks to prepare for our battle. Who knows, you may even be able to gain this pitiful whelp as your servant in that time. I would very much like to put him in his place. But that Riser and his peerage erupted in a flash of fire and were gone. The moment that he was gone, the everyone sans Issei erupted into laughter, including Grafia, who chuckled lightly. Issei looked around, feigning confusion. What's so funny? Issei, you do realize that you just made a fool of the self-declared most important devil there is. Me? No, that can't be right. I would never do something as mean as that. Now would I? Oh, Issei, that was the greatest pre-cancelled wedding present a woman could ever ask for. Now I must ask, to prepare for the rating game, I would like you to come with us as we train. I would like your inner voice's help to become as we get as prepared as we can for the fight. End of the here. So that's it for today's video guys. Before you go, just like the video and share it with your friends. Bye.